As a professional involved in the assessment and diagnosis of FASD, I think my biggest bugbear is the lack of regional diagnostic provision for children and families, which results in them having to sit on very long waiting lists for the few services that are available in England, and also travel a long way for an assessment that should be available locally, just as it is for autism, for example. I think we need to open out our neurodevelopmental pathways to FASD and upskill health professionals working them to be able to work with effectively with children and families with FASD, so that families feel heard and supported.
We need to think differently about FASD because it affects more people than you might think. Around 45% of pregnancies are unplanned, and alcohol exposure in early pregnancy can affect your baby's health. FASD can affect people's learning, behaviour and physical health. It does affect everyone differently. It's a lifelong condition, and support is available for those who have it, for those who support someone with FASD, and for anyone who's planning on getting pregnant.
One of the ways we need to think differently about FASD is in relation to pain. For parents and carers, this means the child can hurt themselves and not seem upset because they're not experiencing much pain. Even with quite serious injuries, they may not feel anything is wrong. Health professionals need to be aware that the young person may not experience pain in the expected way. With illnesses commonly found in young people with FASD, such as ear infections, the child may not complain of much pain, perhaps leading the health professional to think the infection can't be that serious. But recurring ear infections can cause damage, which can lead to hearing impairment. So one of the ways we need to think differently about FASD is in relation to pain.
My journey with FASD started around 20 years ago, and so I've been doing this for quite a while. Back then, people used to say, it's just about the face. There's nothing you can do about it. Why bother? None of you lot agree anyway. And in the 20 years that I have been doing, many of those statements have been changed to the place where we say, well, it's not just about the face and we have evidence to prove it. There are things you can do about it, and we have evidence-based interventions now that we're starting to develop and show makes a difference to people's lives. We've started to do research where we can demonstrate this, so there is a so what, there is an answer, there is something you can do, meaning that it is worth diagnosing, because we do agree broadly on what we're doing and why therefore we should be doing more for this condition. Things have changed over 20 years. Whilst there's still a long way to go, if we look at it as a cup half full, we've come a long way in that period of time. And my journey with this specialty and this field means I can look back and reflect and see just how far we've come. But ultimately, it's not about any of that kind of stuff. The thing that's most important is, what difference does it make to somebody's life? Why do we need to think differently? And for me, I always go back to the story of someone I saw in clinic who walked out saying, I now understand myself. I now understand what I need to do differently to have a better life. And they changed their lives, and they're having a good quality of life now because of that change. So if nothing else, why we need to think differently, it's because we can make people's lives better by making a diagnosis, understanding them, and directing them on a path that changes their trajectory. If nothing else, that's worth it.
The most creative and influential individuals the world has ever produced have been neurodiverse. Most likely they would not have had an easy journey through our education system, which is predominantly designed with neurotypical thinkers in mind. Individuals with FASD have incredible strengths and a unique perspective to offer us if we are open to seeing it. Concentrating on a one-size-fits-all approach prevents the opportunity for individuals to shine, and we miss the chance to learn something too. Think about the individual and not the system. Be open to learning a different way of doing things.
Why do we need to think differently about FASD? We need to realise that a diagnosis of FASD can be life-changing in a positive way. Not knowing that your or your child's difficulty is the result of brain-based differences can lead to poor mental health, substance abuse or behavioural problems in those affected, often contributing to family discord in the absence of support. Receiving a diagnosis of FASD doesn't cause harm. It's being misunderstood that causes harm.
Hi, I'm Morag. I'm a speech and language therapist. It's easy to misinterpret why someone does something unexpected. People with FASD often have difficulties with understanding that can go unnoticed because they talk fluently. We need to recognise that if we make adjustments, such as simplifying our language and using visuals to support understanding, that those affected by FASD will have more success in understanding and retaining the instructions we give them.
FASD is a neurodevelopmental disorder which is part of our Scottish neurodiverse population. We need to think differently about educating children and young people with FASD. This requires a brain-based approach for learning and teaching rather than traditional methods. Educators are able to support young people's needs, but we as professionals need to extend our children and young people's potential. This means adaptations in our learning environments and recognising the child's voice and interests as central to their potential.
I think we really need to think more positively about a diagnosis of FASD. As a paediatrician, I know that with a timely diagnosis followed by appropriate support, you can make a real difference.
We need to think differently about FASD because it is way more common than most people realise. We've recently finished a study in Greater Manchester that shows that at least 2% of children might be affected. There have been modelling estimates that put the figure at nearer 3%. That means that at least 250,000 children are affected by FASD. We need to vastly increase the diagnostic capacity. We need to get interventions to help and support families and children. It's no good for just knowledge and expertise in FASD to just be within a few experts. Everybody needs to know about it.